The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. As Jesus continued his journey to Jerusalem, he traveled through Samaria and Galilee. As he was entering a village, 10 lepers met him. They stood at a distance from him and raised their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." And when he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." As they were going, they were cleansed. And one of them, realizing he had been healed, returned, glorifying God in a loud voice. And he fell at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. Jesus said in reply, 10 were cleansed, were they not? Where are the other 9? Has none but this foreigner returned to give thanks to God? Then he said to him, "Stand up and go. Your faith has saved you." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. In this Jubilee Year of Mercy, as I've been going around doing my Missionary of Mercy thing, I've discovered, of course, over the course of the year, more resources and more ideas and more thoughts, and my knowledge has grown. And so the stuff I've been presenting as I go along has changed somewhat. And there's this quote from St. Therese of Lisieux, you might know her better as St. Therese the Little Flower, that I've been using, that I sort of spin one of my main talks off about mercy. And St. Therese once said this. She said, "How can I fear a God who is nothing but mercy and love?" And I just think that's gorgeous. And it's mind-opening to some people because a lot of people see God as a whole lot of other things than mercy and love, and not all of them positive. And so, of course, I've been keeping Therese of Lisieux in mind, and something she said sort of echoed with me when it comes to today's readings. Now remember, Therese was 24 years old when she passed away. She spent the last 9 years of her life in a convent. And for her, her life had one goal, and that was she wanted to be a saint. I mean, she genuinely desired that. She loved God, wanted to live forever with him in heaven. That was what her heart was set on. Probably a good example for all of us. And this young woman becomes a doctor of the church. But as she was in the convent, like striving for holiness and striving to become a saint, she one day wrote down and realized this. She said, "It is the Father alone who makes us saints. The Father alone makes us saints." Think about that for a minute. I think that's a rather remarkable statement. And very freeing, if you will. Why do I say it's freeing? Well, I think a lot of people, I know myself included at one point in my life, we spend a lot of time, consciously or unconsciously, trying to figure out, what do I have to do to get into heaven? How good do I have to be? I hear that all the time as a priest when people ask me questions like, "Father, how often do I need to go to Mass?" Or, "Father, how often should I go to confession?" Basically questions of, what are the bare minimum? What's the basic requirement that I have to do if I'm going to make it into heaven? I mean, how many times have you done something or thought something, and then you go, "Oh my gosh, is God upset with me for what I just thought or with what I just did? And what do I have to do to straighten that out? How good do I have to be? What do I have to avoid?" All right, St. Therese's line that the Father alone makes us saints turns that on its head. I mean, imagine for a moment that there's nothing you can do to get yourself into heaven, okay? Because the fact of the matter is that's the truth. That's what we believe. I hate to say this to an American audience who's used to like getting what they pay for and getting what they earn and earning and whatever. But you cannot get yourself into heaven. Doesn't matter how good you think you are or how much good stuff you do, you cannot do it. If you could get yourself into heaven, then there would be absolutely no reason for the death and resurrection of Jesus. His passion would have no point if we could do it on our own. We cannot, and that's gospel. The good news is, through the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus, the gift of heaven, of eternal life, is yours. There you go. Pressure's off. God took care of it for you. It is pure, unmerited gift through His grace, through the one who is nothing but mercy and love. It's yours. Pressure off, right? Hell is out of the picture unless you choose it. Because even though it's a complete gift and unmerited, you can opt out. You can opt out if you choose to. I mean, God doesn't want to keep you out of heaven. He's doing everything He can to get you there. But you can opt out. You don't need to beg, congeal, whatever you want to do, grovel to try to get there. He wants you there with Him forever. It is pure gift. And when you receive a gift, what's the appropriate response? Say thank you, right? I mean, that's what we do, receive gifts. You say thank you. There's a reason why our corporate act of worship, what we gather together and do every Sunday here, is called Eucharist. The Greek word means thanksgiving. Because for those who truly grasp what God has done for us and offers us, gratitude, thanksgiving, becomes foundational to the Christian life. Foundational. I mean, in our personal lives, I think we also demonstrate our gratitude. I mean, for this great gift poured upon us every day, saved from eternal damnation, so we can live forever in a place that's more wild and fantastic and thrilling than anything you can imagine, a simple thank you note's not enough. So how do we show God we're thankful? By trying to live how He asks us, by trying to live the values that He shows us are important, by trying to care for our brothers and sisters as Jesus demonstrates, by trying to live the gospel. The gratitude that we should experience for the great gift of eternal salvation is revealed in the way we live our life, and hopefully in the transformation of our life. Two of the readings today. The first one, where Naaman the Syrian is washed clean of leprosy. And the second reading from Luke, the gospel, which is only found in Luke, where you have the lepers who are cleaned of leprosy. In both those stories, there are people so grasped by gratitude that their life is changed. Naaman, he's washed clean, and he decides he wants to take 2 mule loads full of earth from Israel back home, because from here on out, he is worshiping and giving thanks only to the God of Israel. That's it. He puts aside all his pagan gods and converts, changes his life forever. And that leper, the Samaritan, the one that comes back, well, in the Jewish mind, he would have been a double loser. Number one, he had leprosy. So obviously God was upset with him for something. And number two, he was a Samaritan, which may be the reason why God had given him leprosy. He was a double loser. But when he realizes he is healed, he is so grasped by gratitude and love that he actually disobeys Jesus. He doesn't go show himself to the priests. Instead, he goes back to Christ, throws himself at his feet, and thanks him. So grasped by gratitude. Notice the motive. That's important. I think we can probably safely say that most of us as Catholics, we know what we're supposed to do. For lack of a better word, we know what we're supposed to obey. Go to church on Sunday. Get the kids baptized. Get confirmed. Get the kids in faith formation. Say your rosary. Read the scriptures. Put something in the plate. Go to confession occasionally. We know what we're supposed to do. I would say many of us were like the 9 lepers. We know what we're supposed to do. We wander off and do it. Now, how much joy there is in that for you, that's for you to consider. But the question becomes, can we be like the 10th leper? Can we be so possessed by gratitude for the eternal gift that God has given us that we change our life. That we change our life. I don't imagine for a moment that anyone in here is intentionally ungrateful to God. I think the reality is we simply become so busy in our days and in our lives and in the grind of trying to get everything done that we move through most of our life not truly conscious of what it is that God has done for us. Not truly aware of the grace and the blessing that should be foundational to the gratitude that forms our life. Fortunately, gratitude, like any other virtue, can be developed. It can be practiced. I've shared with you before about my friend who, she keeps a journal, and she only puts one thing in the journal, and that is at the end of every day, she looks back on the day and writes down one thing for which she is grateful. So at the end of the week, she's got 7. At the end of the month, 30. At the end of the year, 365 concrete things that she can go, here is why I'm grateful to God. To tell you honestly, at this point, she's been doing it for years, it's usually more than one thing in a day. Because what's happened to her is she no longer has to reflect back on the day to try to figure it out. She's developed eyes that look for it during the day, right? She knows she's going to write it down, so now she's on it looking for where grace is revealed in her life and where she encounters the blessings from God that shapes the gratitude for her life. Or this one. I think for most of us, we experience God's grace and blessing, the reality of His love for us through other people. You can probably think of someone whose presence in your life you are grateful for. I mean, it might be, I don't know, a parent, a mom or a dad who, yes, can drive you absolutely crazy, but whose love for you never fails, who always provides and always cares for you. It might be a spouse who, despite your own stupidity, always seems to find a way to forgive you, to remain with you, and to continue to love you. It might be your children, who even though sometimes they cause you to want to gouge your eyes out, are such a source of joy and hope and delight in your life. Or it might be a classmate or a workmate who in the moment when you want to gouge your eyes out or your parents are driving you crazy or your spouse is out of control, actually gets you through that moment. You can probably think of someone for whom you are grateful. Why not hold them in mind as we come to Eucharist, to Thanksgiving? And thank God for them, and if you want to get really daring, thank them for them. Thank them for their presence in your life. Make it real. Speak it out for them and for you. Gratitude, which should be foundational to our Christian life, can be nurtured and can grow within us. And from that, our God, who is nothing but mercy and love, can make us saints.